welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis for the 27th of April 2024. Now let's quickly proceed and have a look at the pointers of discussion for today. So first of all, we have the editorial segment, and here for today's discussion, we've taken up an Indian Express article with the title, "A Long Way from 1984, when Supreme Court junked Election Commission of India's first ever experiment with EVM." See, a couple of days back, we did a similar article on EVMs where we discussed at length how an EVM machine functions, what are some of its technical apparatus. Then we had a look at when did we start with the EVM, use of EVM in our election. Then, what is some of the practices that other countries follow when it comes to casting of vote in their elections. Then we had a look at what are some of the advantages, disadvantages of using these machines. Now, in today's article, our focus would be with the first ever experiment that Election Commission of India did with use of EVMs. Here we'll have a look at, where was these machines installed, then what was the outcome of the result of this election, then how did the Supreme Court respond to this election outcome, then what followed after the Supreme Court's decision. Secondly, we talk about the news updates, and this is going to be followed by the last segment of legal news. So without further ado, let's start with the article. Let's first see its title, "A Long Way from 1984, when Supreme Court junked Election Commission of India's first EVM experiment." Let's quickly see the context of it. Yesterday, the Supreme Court put its seal of approval unequivocally, that is to say, the members who were a part of the bench before which this matter was listed, it has unanimously put its seal of approval on the use of EVMs without anyone dissenting. The order stated that all the prayer which were made in these batch of petitions, they have been rejected. So what were some of the prayers? I would like to read that out. It is A being reverting back to the ballot paper voting. Secondly, complete EVM-VVPAT verification. Thirdly, giving VVPAT slips to voters to put them in the ballot box. And a prayer was also regarding the rule of regarding a rule under the conduct of election rules. Now, these are some of the terms which those of you who are who let's say have not cast your vote yet, or you're not familiar with the EVM machines, and this is the first video that you're seeing here, and you've not seen the previous video, I would like to highlight these terms. So when you cast your vote and with the EVM machines, this is how it happens. There are these machines, there are a set of 3 equipments. One machine is with the person who is on election duty, be it a government teacher or anybody else, and then he presses a button on that particular machine. Then the voter goes, and there is a cubicle of some sort which is made, wherein 2 machines are put. On the one machine, what you see is the name of the candidate, his election party symbol, and there's a blue button corresponding to that. So you'll see the list of these candidates, and against each name, you'll see a blue button. So whoever you want to cast your vote in favor of, you just press the blue button corresponding to that. Once you do that, then on the second machine, which is kept just beside this machine, which is sort of, you can see, say it's a sealed container, those plastic containers that we often make use of in our kitchens. So it is, just to put it very simply, it is that sort of a sealed box. So on that, in the middle of it, there is a transparent screen. On the screen, for a time of 6 to 7 seconds, you see a slip on which you find the name of the candidate, the election symbol of the candidate, and these sort of informations. So why is this VVPAT machine installed? See, this is just so that the voter, after having pressed the button, can, just verify that his vote is properly cast and registered. So the prayer said that there should be a complete EVM-VVPAT verification, and the slip which is generated in the VVPAT, it should be given to the voter to be put in the ballot box. So this is what has happened recently. The Supreme Court has given its seal of approval with the use of EVMs. Now let's go back to 40 years ago, when a voting machine was used for the very first time in a constituency in Kerala. So the result that was declared following this election and the use of these machines, result, it was set aside by the Supreme Court, which ordered re-election. So now let's have a look at the first experiment in detail. I've not read it out, the 5085 figure, because we'll just see the details now. See, in August of 1980, the Electronics Corporation of India Limited, it made a proposal before political parties saying that, we've made a certain machine and we would want that you give it a trial, that you put these machines to use in the casting of vote in the elections. Now, there was no response from the central government, there was no response from the parliament, but the body which is responsible for conduct of elections in India, which is the Election Commission of India, it responded. How did the Election Commission of India respond? See, 2 years later, in 1982, the Election Commission of India, it announced that these machines would be made use of on a pilot basis, that is to say, on an experiment basis, in 50 out of 84 election stations, the polling stations, which were set up in Parur constituency during that year's assembly elections in Kerala. So in Kerala, there is a constituency in which 84 different polling stations were set up. Out of these polling stations, 50 on these 50 stations, the machines were installed and the voters were asked to cast their vote using these machines. The central government had not sanctioned the use of these machines, but the Election Commission of India used its constitutional powers under Article 324 of the Indian Constitution. Now, a question might arise in your mind as to, what is the scope of Article 324? How does it give the Election Commission of India the power that it can sanction the use of these machines when, let's say, there is no legislative backing as such? So in this article, it provides for, or it empowers the Election Commission of India to have the power of superintendence, direction, and control over the elections. So the ECI, it said that because we have this sort of power, so we are sanctioning the use of these machines. Now, following the election, the results came out and the CPI candidate won the election, while the Congress counterpart, he lost the election. And he lost by a margin of 123 votes. Now, the candidate who won, he had some nearly 30,550 votes in his favor. And out of these, a substantial chunk, nearly more than half of it, 90,000 plus, it was cast from these machines. Now, the candidate who lost, the Congress candidate, he challenged the result of this election before the trial court concerned. The trial court upheld the validity of the election result and the vote which was cast using these machines. So the trial court said that these machines are fine. The voting which was done using these machines, that voting is also fine. There's no error whatsoever. And as a result, the election result, it is also fine. So everything is good. Then the person who lost the election, he still felt aggrieved. So as a result, he reached the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court then heard the matter. Now, before the Supreme Court, the Election Commission of India based its argument on Article 324 and the power that it derives therefrom. So the Election Commission of India argued that its powers under Article 324, it would supersede any act of the Parliament, and in case there is any conflict, any inconsistency between, let's say, a law which is made by the Parliament or the action which is taken by the Election Commission of India using its power under Article 324, then Article 324 power is going to prevail. So this is what it said. The Election Commission of India said that if there was any conflict between the law and the Election Commission of India's powers, then the law would yield to the Commission's powers, and the Commission's powers are going to prevail. But it's a question that it might arise in your mind as to whether the Supreme Court did the Supreme Court find substance in this argument of the Election Commission of India, giving it itself such wide sweeping powers. So in response, the Supreme Court said, and I would like to quote this out: "This is a very attractive argument, but on a closer scrutiny and deeper deliberation, It is not possible to read into Article 324 such a wide and uncanalized power. So the Supreme Court categorically and very clearly said that it is not possible for us to read such wide powers in the Election Commission of India using this particular article. The bench thus unanimously held that introducing the voting machines, it was a legislative power which only the parliament at the center and the state legislatures at the various state level, they could exercise using their powers under Article 326 and 327, and not the Election Commission of India using its power under Article 324. So clearly the Supreme Court did not find substance in the Election Commission of India's argument. Now, the Election Commission of India also relied on Section 59 of the Representation of People's Act of 1951 and on Rule 49 of the Conduct of Elections Rules of 1961. Let's break this entire paragraph down. Let's see what is this section, what is this rule. So, Section 59 of the Representation of People Act, it says that votes shall be given by ballot in such manner as may be prescribed. Now, this term prescribed, you must have seen it being defined in a couple of statutes. Let's say your CRPC defines this, I believe, in Section 2T, prescribed is defined. Then you also have prescribed defined in your minor acts like the POCSO, the DV Act, and all of these acts, whereby they say by prescribed, we mean prescribed by rules, which means wherever the term prescribed is used, be it in our constitution or any other statute, it means that the government, which is empowered for making rules, it can make rules and further elaborate on the procedure, the manner, and all of these technicalities. So essentially 59, what it did was that vote shall be given by ballot in such manner as may be prescribed, which means Election Commission of India was given the power to make rules for deciding the manner. And the rules stated that the Election Commission of India publish a notification to direct that the method of voting by ballot shall be followed and at such polling stations as may be specified in the notification. Now, using this power, rules were made, and in these rules, the Election Commission of India had this power. However, the government had, the court held that the manner as may be prescribed was by using ballot paper and not the voting machines. The court also held that the word ballot, it is to be used in its strict sense, and the court said that when we use it in the strict sense, then it would not include voting through these machines. And the court noted that the center, as a rule-making authority, it was not prepared to switch over to the system of voting by machines. I'm sorry, if I said that the rules were made by the Election Commission of India, then I would like to stand corrected here. The rule-making power was with the government. Now, the court observed that if the mechanical process is adopted, that is to say, if machines are used, then full and proper training will have to be given to the voters, which will take quite some time. Let's see what happened post the Supreme Court's verdict. A by-election was held on May 22nd in 1984, in which the Congress candidate who initially lost, he won. But the idea of voting machine would not be abandoned. So then came 1988, where the election law was amended to insert Section 61A, which allowed the Election Commission of India to specify the constituencies where voting could be done and recorded by these machines. Then a decade later, in 2008, EVMs, they were used at 16 assembly seats in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Delhi. And this was expanded to 46 Lok Sabha seats in 1999. And then in 2001, state elections in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Puducherry, and West Bengal, they were entirely conducted using EVMs. By the year 2004, Lok Sabha elections, EVMs had completely replaced the ballot papers at all the 553 seats. So with this, now we proceed to the national news category. Karnataka and Gujarat, they lead India's clean energy transition. As per a report which is released by the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis, and Amber. It evaluated the progress that India's clean energy electricity transition has made at the state level. As in, it is analyzed and evaluated as to which all states have made great progress in transitioning to renewable energy sources and which states lag behind, and therefore they have to up their game and bring about reforms in the manufacturing or in the generation of the renewable source of energy. So let's talk about the leading states and those states which are lagging behind. Karnataka, Gujarat, they continue to excel, while Jharkhand, Bihar, West Bengal, and UP, they need to enhance renewable energy deployment and strengthen the distribution companies. Now we come to the segment of important days for today. So this is a very important day. First, we talk about International Chernobyl Disaster Remembrance Day. See, if I were to, ask a question to you, if I say the word atomic energy, nuclear power disaster, or nuclear weapon, nuclear warfare, what would come to your mind at the very first instance? Wouldn't Hiroshima, Nagasaki, all of these words, the disaster that happened, or the nuclear warfare, wouldn't this come to your mind? But there was the worst disaster, nuclear disaster, that happened in 1986 on April 26th. So let's talk about that. Every year, International Chernobyl Disaster Remembrance Day, it is observed on 26th April. Remember this day? Now let's see what is Chernobyl and what is this disaster about. See, first thing first, this is a place in the erstwhile USSR, and there was a nuclear power plant which was situated here. It had 4 nuclear reactor units, and in the year 1986, on 26th of April, 25th, 26th, 26th, 27th of April rather, an accident, it happened there. So during a 20-second routine shutdown of the nuclear power plant, a disaster happened, as a result of which in the nuclear power plant an accident, a disaster happened, and as a result of it, radioactive clouds radioactive cloud was spread over the Soviet territory, which is comprised in current day countries of Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia. So this was a massive disaster, in fact the worst disaster, nuclear disaster, that our world has seen so far. In 2016, the United Nations announced that every year on 26th of April, International Chernobyl Disaster Remembrance Day will be celebrated. So hence this day. You can mark down the dates for the purpose of your exams. Second is the World Intellectual Property Rights Day. So the World Intellectual Property Day, it is observed annually on 26th of April, the same date. The event, it was established by the World Intellectual Property Organization in the year 2000 to raise awareness of how patents, copyright, trademarks, and designs impact our daily life. The World Intellectual Property Day, it promotes global understanding of IP's role in fostering global arts, promoting technological innovations, and highlighting the importance of IP rights like patents and trademarks. As far as the theme for this year is concerned, it is IP and the Sustainable Development Goals, building our common future with innovation and creativity. Now we come to the international segment for today, first being this update, which is coming from China. China launches 3-member crew to its space station. China launched a 3-member crew to its orbiting space station as part of its ambitious program that aims to put astronauts on the moon by 2030. Okay, so now let's have a look at some of the information pointers for exam purpose about this news. So the spacecraft concerned here is Shenzhou 18. And as far as the name of all these 3 crew members is concerned, first we have Commander Ye Gongfu. He's 43, a veteran astronaut who took part in the Shenzhou 13 mission in 2021. Then we have fighter pilots Li Kong and Li Gongshu. He's 36. the spacecraft, these 3 crew members along, they were expected to reach the space station about 6.5 hours after liftoff. Another update comes from Kuwait. Kuwait launches first ever Hindi language radio program. Kuwaiti radio, it will broadcast programs in Hindi language every Sunday from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. starting 21st April 2024. So this has started already. The Hindi program, it is being broadcast on FM from this timing. And the Kuwaiti radio, this move, it was deeply appreciated by the Indian embassy in Kuwait. Next up is an update from Russia. Russia vetoes UN vote on stopping arms race in outer space. Russia has vetoed a resolution at the UN Security Council which called on all countries to prevent an arms race in the outer space. The draft resolution put forward by the US and Japan, it sought to reaffirm a principle already set out in the 1967 Outer Space Treaty. Let's see the content of this draft. It essentially said that all states, in particular those with major space capabilities, to contribute actively to the objective of peaceful use of the outer space and of prevention of an armed race in the outer space. Next up is an update from Indonesia. Prabowo Subianto declared Indonesia's president-elect. Indonesia's Electoral Commission, it has officially declared Prabowo Subianto as the president-elect after the country's highest court rejected challenges to his landslide victory. Next up is another update in the international segment. Fourth session on global plastic treaty negotiations. The fourth session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee to develop an international legally binding treaty on plastic pollution. It commenced recently in Canada. The objective of this particular commission and the penultimate round of the negotiations, it is to refine the text of the draft agreement, aiming to finalize the treaty at the fifth session in November 2024. The treaty, it aims to address the full life cycle of plastic, including its production, its design, and the consequent disposal. Now, this has brought us to the legal segment for today, where we just have one update from the Supreme Court, and that too with respect to the EVM matter. Supreme Court rejects plea for 100% EVM-VVPAT verification, and it has issued directions to seal symbol loading unit. The Supreme Court rejected the plea seeking 100% cross-verification of the EVM data with the records of the VVPAT, which is the Voter Verifiable Paper Audit Trail. The prayers for reverting to ballot paper voting and the prayer regarding complete EVM-VVPAT verification, regarding giving VVPAT slips to voters to be put in the ballot box, and regarding a rule of the conduct of election commission rules, they've all been rejected. However, 2 directions were issued by the Supreme Court. Let's have a look at these 2 directions. First is that the symbol loading unit, it must be sealed and secured after the VVPAT symbol loading process, signed by candidates or representatives, and kept in strong room for 45 days after result declaration. The burnt memory semi-controller in 5% of EVMs, including control unit, ballot unit, and VVPAT, they must be verified by engineers post-result announcement for tempering or modification. Candidates at 2 or 3 behind the highest polled candidate can request verification within 7 days. That is to say, the person who, let's say, secured the second highest vote or the third highest vote, they have a window of 7 days to put any objection that they have to the result. The district election officer will verify the burnt memory microcontroller's authenticity. The actual verification cost will be notified by the Election Commission of India, and the expenses will be refunded if the EVM is found tempered. The name of this particular case is Association of Democratic Reforms versus Election Commission of India and others. So with this, we've come to an end of our TNA. Thank you so much for being with us. And in case you have any suggestion on any topic that you would want us to discuss in the editorial segment with a lot of research, and you may specify that in the comment section. You may just, mention what are the aspects of that point that you would want to have an elaborate discussion around. We will be absolutely happy to help you out with that. Keep watching, keep learning. Bye. Have a good day.